Hey, y'all, look, I know I had to stop by and interrupt for just one quick moment, but I want to make sure that you know how important you are as a subscriber or even a listener. I need you all to please do me a favor. And I know everybody's asking for, contending for your time, your attention, your subscription, but I want to ask you just to do me a favor. If you are here enjoying what's happening here at Camille Nash TV, please be sure to like the show, whatever you're watching, like it, please. Why don't you? Comment and even subscribe. That way we know that you are here. We're doing everything that we can to uplift and inspire our men. We want to, I say it all the time. It takes a transformed heart to create a transformed life. So it takes transparency in order to see transformation. You don't care about any of that. What's most important, I stopped by because I want to remind you that you matter, your listenership matters, and also to inform you that if you have not already, be sure to go on over if you're on Facebook to the Bullpen Show with me, Camille Nash, the Redhead, so that you can stay connected and glued in with all of our guests, not only the guests that are forthcoming, but all the guests that have come in season one. We're going to be wrapping up season two soon. And I've got a lot of other big stuff that's coming over the next 3 months. It's just going to be explosive. It's already explosive. And we're going to be dropping remnants of it throughout all the aspects of social media and also, more importantly, in our Facebook group. So you all go on over there, stay connected, and don't miss anything that's happening. I hope life is treating you well. Let's get back to the episode. Good evening and welcome to the Bullpen. Listen, if you have been on this journey with me for any length of time, you know I have an affinity for whales. I love to tell you that it was birthed out of some melodic story where you could hear the violins playing in the background. Yet, no, in good godly fashion, God would allow me to take those lemons and turn them into lemonade. But here in the Bullpen, we talk everything: media, ministry, money, and the marketplace. And all season long, we've been talking about meaningful relationships. We got to get our ships in order. You all heard me. We've got to get our ships in order. And I'm telling you, week after week after week, everybody's been asking me, when are we going to talk about love? And so tonight, I am thrilled to tell you, we're going to talk about love tonight. And we're going to talk about what it looks like when the right one comes. More importantly, so you don't miss out on the right one. Some of you men out there are proclaiming that you're picky, which we're going to find out from our coach tonight, the dating coach, relationship coach, that's just a code word for I want to play the field. That's what he told me. And we're going to talk about a lot about compatibility, and we're going to leave you with some pragmatic principles on how to actually date the right way, and so that you don't let the right one get away. So listen, the gentleman I'm going to bring to the platform tonight, he is known all around the world as a critically acclaimed author, best-selling author, and I couldn't wait to get him on. It took us over a year and a half now to get him, and we're privileged, we're thrilled to bring him on tonight so we can talk about preparing our hearts to be a servant for the relationship of the right one. It is without further ado, I'd like to present to some and introduce to others, that in the form of Blair Nash.
Can you hear me?
And there he is. And there he is. There he is. There he is.
How are you?
I am excellent tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. So just tell our audience a little bit about you, what they would not have heard in our introduction, and
Okay.
what you want to gain out of the conversation tonight.
Yeah. So I am Blair Nash. I am a speaker, author, and relationship dating coach. I've been doing this for roughly now about 11 years. I started back in 2013. I have 3 books I've authored. You can go to my website, which is blairnashspeaks.com, and hear all about me. Find out a little bit about, stuff that I'm doing, stuff I've done in the past. And you can purchase my books there. You can also find out about events that I'm hosting as well. You can also schedule appointments if you're interested in doing any type of coaching or anything, whether it be virtually or in person. I do both. So yeah.
That is outstanding. And we're going to make sure we include all those links so you all can get connected with Blair or even get on his calendar. I'm sure he can give you some good counsel. So we're going to get into a powerful conversation tonight. I've already shared with them that you're going to leave them with some pragmatic principles that they can incorporate and inculcate in their life immediately.
yeah, you were a straight, you were a straight, you know what. So that's part of your walk. That's part of your journey. Is
Yeah.
going back and mending the fences of people that you've done wrong in the past.
Wow. So, my goodness. So you went back and apologized to some of these women. What was that like for you? What did it feel like?
Uh, Sobering,
Yeah.
because like most people, when you're in the thick of it, when you're in the midst of, and I will say to your listeners, think of whatever you've done in the past, whether it's been drinking, drugs, illicit sex, lying, whatever it is that you've done. While you were in the middle of it, you kind of justified it however you did. You're like, well, this is just what I do, and whatever. And so I justified it, whatever I was doing. So having to come face to face with exactly what I had did. Like again, I'll give you another example, and I won't name names because these people have moved on, they're in relationships, etc.
Yeah, no, no, that's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay.
there's a young lady who I had done something to, and everything. And when I say done, I don't mean anything like molested or anything. Just
Yeah. Hmm.
played her, just slept with her, and and moved on and act like excuse me. And so I didn't see her for about 7 months. I was trying to call her, like, hey, what's, why aren't you returning my calls, whatever. Then all of a sudden, I had saw her kind of on a humble, and she tried to avoid me, and I was like, you're not going to avoid me. We're going to have this conversation.
Hmm.
And so when we had the conversation, it was the first, and I think it was the first time that I actually saw a woman be broken, and that
Mm.
was the first time where it kind of sat, because all these different times, when you do things and you play these women, you're just moving on to the she tripping. I'm not listening to this. I'm moving on to the next person, right?
Right.
It
Yeah.
was the first time that I had a chance to see, oh wow, this is the collateral damage that happens when you do what you do, Blair.
Hmm.
When
Hmm.
you do all these games and all this other stuff, this is the damage that happens.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I said, it's very sobering when you realize, like, wow, this person has been dramatically affected because of something stupid you did. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's just a surreal feeling when you just kind of look at it, because like I said, usually by the time something like that happens, a woman is like, get out of my face, you joker, and da 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 da. And they want to be rid of you, right?
Yep.
You're very seldom do you get to see, like, oh, this is a woman who's literally in a fetal position, and
Hmm.
she just, she's almost hyperventilating because of some stupid something you did previously. So yeah, like I said, over the years, it's been kind of it's been sobering. That's pretty much the word I will use. It's been very enlightening. What I try to do, I understand how men think. I understand how men are. So when I see men in that kind of
Hmm.
in that realm, I definitely understand. And I'm not here to, like, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Mm.
I'm not here to chastise. But what I am here to say is, one day you're going to turn around and regret. I have seen it happen literally 100 times out of nothing. I've seen men regret it as they get older. Yeah, when you're 30 and 40,
Right.
you're like, I'm in the man, I'm on the scene. Ain't nobody tell me nothing, right? You know,
Right.
but when you
Exactly.
start to get older and you start to think to yourself, would I
Yeah.
want someone doing this to my wife?
Right.
Would I want somebody? I don't have a daughter, but would I want someone doing this to my daughter or
Hmm.
my mom or my friend?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So that's when you start to say, okay, yeah, that's you're being a, I won't say the word, but
Hmm.
you're being a trip. I'm gonna keep your show clean.
Well,
I don't want you,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want your listeners to be like, he off the chain. So I don't want them to be.
yes, no, yes. We have all types of people all around the world that listen to our show. So demographics definitely are men, and some of them, many of them are men of faith. But
Hmm.
we know there's folks that aren't. So we want them too. We want everybody. I want to go back to something you said earlier about the event that you were at. I saw that you had a big event. You were that where you showed some pictures on social media.
Hmm.
Were you a part of that panel, or can you share with our audience a little bit about what that was, where you said someone had invited you up because they weren't there?
Yes. Yeah. So the event is called Woman on Blanc. Very you for people who are in Atlanta, they have something called Dinner on Blanc or something, but it's not
Okay.
the same thing, but it's called Woman on Blanc.
Okay.
And what I found out was en blanc actually means in white. Didn't know that until a couple days before the event.
Okay.
So basically what it is that it's women, sisters who dress up in white, and they come out and they just enjoy the ambiance of just being together and kind of in sisterhood. So
Okay. Got it.
one of my friends, her name is Adrian Ruff. She actually puts the event on. Unfortunately, this was the last of the events. She's been doing it for about 7 or 8 years now, so she hasn't hosted here in Columbus.
Okay.
She might actually branch out and do something different, but we'll see.
Nice.
But to your point, to your question, so I was one of the speakers. I was on the
Okay.
the panel.
You're on the panel.
So one of the ladies kind of put me on the spot, and I was one of the because I was just kind of in the back room, just kind of sitting in the back, watching the women kind of just listening and watching the women
Yeah.
and seeing their expressions and everything. And so she was like, matter of fact, we need to hear from a guy on this. She's like, Blair, come on up here and everything. I was
Yeah.
like, oh Lord. And so
You already knew.
yeah, so essentially what she did was she asked me kind of where was the what happened as far as kind of the metamorphosis and transition of where you are right now.
Mhm.
So again, like I said, it goes back to what I said about having to kind of shed a lot of the friends from the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a major part of it. So but yeah, the event it's an annual event. And like I said, she asked me to come up and just kind of talk about how I got to be, because my wife and I will have been married 4 years, November 7th.
Yeah. I
So
want to hear
yeah, I don't know when this is going to air and everything, but it'll be in 4 years, November 7th. So
that.
we're having our 4-year anniversary, and everything is going very well. So um, but yeah, that's it. She just wanted to kind of ask questions about how I got to where I am. So.
So when you had to make that definitive decision to sort of, because again, we're not disrespecting anybody. I mean, it is what it is. When we have to release dead weight, we have to release it because it's not going to serve us with where we're
Hmm.
going. Right. So that is where we have to make that decision. I mean, God calls us to cut some things off, and the cutting never feels good. But what I really want to dig into is, was there a turning point for you? Did something happen that caused you to say, you know what, I don't really like this. I don't like this life anymore. I want something different. And especially with you being a relationship expert, a relationship coach, a relationship and dating coach, you're advising a lot of people on how to navigate these waters. What was the turning
Hmm.
point for you?
So, great question. So, the turning point, and I'll make a about a 2 hour story fit into about 30 to 45 seconds. So,
Oh,
the
okay.
turning point, honestly, was there was a young lady that I was dating who tried to kill me, and so yeah, exactly. So what had happened was I had, I believe in I believe in omens. I believe in things kind of happening. And so I had been at that point, I was probably close to 40. And I had been doing whatever I had been doing for literally now almost a couple decades, since basically I was 18, 19 years old, right? And so as they say, eventually, how they say eventually you're gonna meet that right one. Well, I met that right one.
It's gonna
So
catch up with you.
uh
Mhm.
yeah, it caught up with me. So
Mm.
um like I said, I'm omitting a lot about
Oh no, give us we want some details. Give us enough of
well,
the
I'll give you some sparse details.
okay.
The lady tried to kill me. So I was doing what I do, doing what I was doing and everything. Yes, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I was seeing her. And show you how awful I was, the woman actually lived literally across the street from my girlfriend at the time. So when I say across the street, like you could throw a football and land in her
Mm,
yard across the street.
mm,
So yeah, that's what I mean.
mm.
I was diabolical with my stuff. So
It's real.
um yeah. So long story short, I got out of there with my life. She tried to kill me. She tried to, she had like, those big, like humongous space heaters, like the big space heaters, the kind that you heat like a whole entire, office room up with. She had one of those and threw it and busted my window. It was crazy. I mean, I was in her garage at the time. So like I said, I'm omitting a lot of details because I don't want to make the story too long, but obviously I had to kind of park in the garage because, if she saw my truck out there, at the time I had one of those big expeditions and everything. My truck was very recognizable. So I had to park in her her garage. So as, to be inconspicuous to my girlfriend who was literally across the street. Yeah. So, long story short, I got out of there with my life, windows busted. There's some other things that happened as well, but I'll leave those, down the road. Okay. But I just said to myself, God, this, I know you didn't, I was like, I know you didn't bring your boy this far to die like this. I know he did. I know you didn't. So that event was literally the turning point of me being to the person I am today. That was the moment. That was the moment where I said, I got to make some changes. I always tell people one of the worst things that can happen that you can do when you're doing something wrong is get away with it. Oh. For anybody who's done anything, whether it's, smoking weed, doing drugs, cheating on somebody, whatever. The very first time you do it, you're like, oh my God, I feel awful. Then the second time you're like, that was awful. Then the third time you're like, that wasn't bad. Yeah, exactly. So then what happens is you're just kind of, your consciousness is being kind of sucked out of you. So again, like I said, I won't go into any large details, but I had been that way for the better part of about 2 decades. Wow. And I say to say I had never been found out, caught, et cetera. That was the very first time that happened. Wow. And so, I was, and I'll reference this. In my very first book, I talked about my grandfather, who was a phenomenal man. I mean, when I say he was they say they don't make him like that anymore. My grandfather, he was a military vet. He was a professional bowler. So he took us literally all around the country, everywhere you can think of. He took us. He was also a deacon at the church. He could fix anything. He was handsome. He could play the piano, et cetera. But as I tell people, what he also was he was the player to end all players. And
I was waiting for it. Mm-hmm.
And what do you think he taught his wonderful grandson?
Wow. How to be a player from the Himalayas.
Well, yeah, exactly. So
all the other great things about him.
He was phenomenal. Now, my real father, he was a player as well. They say he has 10 children, numerous different women. I don't know any of them or whatever, but that was my father. So you got my grandfather, my father. What do you think they're going to teach me? What do you think I'm going to learn? So part of it obviously is through your DNA. Part of it is just through learned behavior. Mm-hmm. So sure. I say this to say I have been getting away with this for literally a better part of decades. And I said, once that event happened where the girl kind of got me close to death, it was like, that was the first time I was like, I could die tonight. Right. And so I said, something's got to, as I'm driving home at like 3 a.m. with the breeze hitting me, and I'm like, because I don't have no windows, I'm like, I could have died, man. I really could have died. So that was when I had the moment. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, when I had the moment when I said, I've really got to make some changes here. So from that point on, that was when I started to realize, I kind of started taking an assessment, and I said, you know what? All of my guy friends championed me doing this. They all was like, Blair, the how can I wear your t-shirt? They're all,
Wow.
in they're in awe because they're like, how do you get away with this, man? Until it happened. So, like I said, it was probably the best thing in the world to happen to me,
Yeah.
because what it did was it set me straight and kind of put me on a course to where I'm at now.
And as I heard you say that, the only thing that kept coming up in my mind is sin, because when you said that you were getting away with it, so you were just like, okay, it just becomes familiar to you. Sin always takes us further than we want to go and keeps us longer than we want to stay. So
True.
therefore, it just becomes second nature. Yet at
Hmm.
the same time, I love that you highlighted your grandfather. There were a lot of great attributes about him, and
Hmm.
you probably honed true to a lot of those too. When you realize you had this near death experience, all of which you're going to save for the made for TV movie. Um, when you had that experience, you made it home. You said, "Okay, thank you, Lord. I thank you, God. I made it home."
Hmm.
What happened the next day for you after that? I mean, it was a
You
turning
making me
point.
you making me go back and everything. Now I'm just like,
I mean,
man.
I know
So
you might have to talk to your therapist this week about it, but
right, right, right.
revisit it for just
So
a moment, for cleansing, for that clearing.
so what I did, this was a Saturday night going into Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So this was about 15 years ago. I mean, I tried to find some place that could actually do my window, because what I said was, all right, I still got it together. I just got to replace my window. It's good as I get my window and da 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 da. And I was like, Blair. Then I was like, no, no, you gotta, something's got to change. So what I did was, I'm trying to read, this is 15, 16,
Yeah.
17 years ago now. So what happened was I went home. Oh, by the way, she actually had my phone, the girl. So I had to go get one of those little minute phones and everything,
Oh,
and
wow.
I had to concoct some story. When I called my girlfriend the next day and everything. She said, what's wrong with you? Why you got a different number? And I was
Yeah.
like, da, 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 da. I was like, I got into this, fighting campus, et cetera, et cetera. And they busted my windows and da, 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 da. And I made this elaborate story and everything. Right. So I'm just going with it because the one thing that I was always did well, and it's a gift and a curse, was be able to just kind of make stuff up on the fly. And it's a gift and a curse. It is a gift and a curse. It's a gift and a curse, because it's a curse because when people realize that you can do that, they're always kind of cautious of like, is he really telling the truth? Because he can think so quickly on his feet. Is
Hmm.
he really telling the truth? Or so but to your question, so that happened. She was like, da, 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 da. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna come see you later on, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, I'll figure a way out over there, right? So that was then. She's like, all right, baby, I miss you. I was like, I miss you too, right? So that was probably around 1 in the afternoon.
Hmm.
By the time that I got over there, maybe around 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, her whole demeanor was different. Whole
Mm.
demeanor. Because I hadn't really dealt with this, it didn't click to me that maybe she might know something.
No,
Her
right.
entire demeanor was different. I got over there. She was like, hey, I was like, hey, sweetie, how you doing? She gave me a little, the one of them little church hugs and everything. And I was like, okay, so I'm just, talking to her, trying to get her, trying to.
Ah.
So, so I was talking to her, and she was just very, just kind of disengaged and
Mhm.
everything. I was like, okay, well, she's like, I'm going to bed. She's like, good night. And so I was like, okay. And again, still not clicking to me, right?
I still didn't catch it.
Still didn't catch it. It didn't hit. It didn't. So that was that Sunday. So left from her place, went to work. Again, I'm
Mhm.
trying to remember. Went to work. Got to work and everything fine, no problem. She went to work. So typically as a relationship, you call each other during the day. How you doing? Thinking about you. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Mhm.
So I think it was around maybe 10 o'clock. I called her. I was like, "Hey, how you doing? Just checking in." Got her voicemail. Just checking in, seeing how you doing. Give me a hit up. So didn't hear anything. And so with your mate, or not mate, but with your significant other, you not kind of know their pattern. So you're like, if I don't hear from them in like a half hour, something's up. So probably about an hour and a half went by, and I was like, never heard back from her. Let me reach out again. So reached out, still didn't hear. I was like, huh. Okay, maybe maybe she's in a meeting or something, et cetera, et cetera. So then around 1 o'clock, now I'm kind of start getting, I'm like, something's going on, something's up. So I called her again, no answer. Called her again, no answer. Then I started reaching out to like her dad. I called her dad, was like, hey, he's like, no, I haven't heard anything from her today. It's like, huh, okay. If you hear from her, please have her contact me. Then I had one of her friends who I knew that she worked with. I was like, hey, can you go check and everything? Like, no, she actually left. Like, oh, okay. So then I was like, well, I'm at work, and I didn't, at the time I didn't have the kind of job where I could just kind of up in whatever. So I called another friend of hers and said, friend of hers lived like around the corner, kind of in the same division. I was like, would you go and check, make sure she. So she lived like literally 60 seconds away. So I was like, give me a call back. Let me know she's cool. She gets back and like, oh yeah, she's sitting in the living room.
Oh my. Wow.
So then that's when it hit me. That's when it was, that's when it hit me. So yeah, so and let me tell you, I actually took my car to get the windows done, but I had to have a buddy of mine who also knew about, what I was doing. I had to have a buddy of mine take me over to my then girlfriend's house. So I'm knocking on the door, nothing. Knocking on the door. And the funny thing is, she has a loft. I could see her and her friend, their cars are all outside. I could see the cars. And I'm just like, I'm like Romeo. I'm like, all I want to do is just talk. All I want to do is just talk to you. Just let me talk to you. So, long story short, the police were called, et cetera, et cetera. So it was ugly. Like I said, this story, I'm leaving out a lot of the story. The whole story would take about 2 hours. But since you asked for some details, I gave them to you.
Got hurt. I mean, there was
no. Nobody got hurt.
But nobody got hurt.
No one got hurt.
But it was definitely a life learning moment for you.
Definitely a life learning moment. Yeah, and anyone that knows me will tell you, I'm still Blair, meaning that I still am the kind of the person who I am. But anyone who knows me will tell you, he made a change after that happened. So because it was just, I was like, wow, and I lost my girl at the time, I almost, died, et cetera, et cetera. So all these different kind of life shifting things were happening. So that was that window of roughly about a week or so was when I kind of made the shift.
Yeah. So you decide, so you've been a relationship and dating coach for almost 2 decades now, right?
No. I only became that back in, I think it was 2017, if I recall. So
what I want to know is, how'd you go from that to, so that means that you had this epiphany, you had this awakening experience. You're like, I don't want to live like that no more. I want to do something different. You change people, places, and things, friends. How'd you find yourself in this relationship space? Because there's so many aspects to it. How'd you find yourself in the dating, with the dating piece of it, and supporting people in that way?
Well, yeah. So around that time, let me give a little bit of context. So I was a mortgage broker, and so basically, this was happening around 2009. Right. Okay. So this was, if you remember, for anyone who remembers back then, we're right outside the mortgage crisis, the bubble breaking. Right. Yep. Fortunately for me, like I said, I made nice money during that time. So I was able to kind of sock away a little bit of money. So a lot of the people who were like, man, this is horrible. I'm like, it's it is what it is. But
you were okay,
so yeah, I was okay. Well, I was okay for a little over a year. Okay. So because I had, nice money, set aside. Well, come 2010 was when I was like, okay, now it is a little ugly. So
something. Mm-hmm.
Now I got to do something right. So 2010, kind of 2011. Let's go forward to 2011 was when it really hit. That was probably the ugliest year.
Yeah.
So I lost everything. I lost my home, lost both my vehicles, lost, all my money was gone, etc. And so I went from making literally six figures, good six figures, to the typical thing, having two black trash bags, having to get a ride from where I was staying to go over to a buddy of mine's house. I didn't even have a ride over there. That's how far down I had slid, right? So I was sitting there and I'm just sitting here like, man, I can't believe this is so crazy. I can't believe I'm like, I've lost my home, I've lost everything, right? And so a buddy of mine, his name is Eric. I'll give you that. His name is Eric. He has said to me, Eric. His name is Eric. He said, B, what do you want to do? And I said, E, I was like, he's like, I was like, I don't know. He said, well, what are you good at? I was like, I've always been great at talking with women. Women have always told me their problems and their stories and their dilemmas. He's like, why don't you be like a Hitch or something? I was like, hit you mean like the movie?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. I was like, dude, ain't nobody gonna listen to me, man. You're crazy. And he said something to me.
I love it.
He said something to me that was so profound. He said, Blair, you're exactly who they need to hear from. You're exactly who they need to hear from. They can't listen to a little kitty cat. They need to listen to a wolf. And Blair, you are a wolf. And I said, okay. So kind of started on, so I would, put statuses on on Facebook. People are like, oh my God, right. How they did church. Amen. All that, whatever. So from there, the whole pat in the back, slapping thighs, like, child, he right.
Yeah.
So I went from that to a podcast, which was wildly successful. The only problem was at the time I didn't really know how to monetize off of it. So I was just cool with the fact that it was like really popular and people would call in, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't even know the whole monetize of, getting money from it and everything. So, so that happened. And then one of my supporters said something to me that I was like, and they was like, you need to write a book. And I was like, write a book? I'm like, I ain't no author. I was like, baby, I'm just, I do what I do. Right. And she was like, you should write a book. And I was like, okay. So I wrote my first book, which came out now we're fast forwarding to 2015.
Yeah.
Me. Wrote my first book, what was it called? Illuminating the Battlefield. It was off the meter. It was just like, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I was traveling. I was getting asked to speak at different events and everything. And, I got asked to speak out the country and, I was with all the places, LA, Chicago, Atlanta, just everybody was like, with this new young hot guy, he knows what he's talking about and everything. And I was like, yeah, okay. Because I'm just really doing what, what God has blessed me with, which is the ability to kind of speak and talk and everything. And so the book did tremendous. And so, so somebody was like, you should do another book. I was like, that was easy. I was like, let me put another book together. So I did my second book in 2016. Then the last book I had come out in 2018. And so the last book kind of was a little rough because I kind of really went hard at, I went hard at Black men. I went hard at our sisters. So it was kind of a hard digest for people.
And what was the name of that one? Tell them the name of that book.
Black Money, Love, Black, what was it? Black Money. I'm sorry, Black Love, Money, Sex, Relationships. Yes.
So what made that one so hard? Because I did take a peek at that.
It was hard. Well, it was hard for people to kind of digest because, like I said, it was very much, before I was always like, I kind of equate it to the difference between R&B back in the 70s and 80s versus R&B now.
Mm,
Right.
right.
R&B back in the 70s and 80s was, let your hair down. Let me take, let me sit down and, put your feet up on me and everything, girl. And,
Right.
that's how they used to do it and everything. Just saying these very kind of these innuendos. But,
Right.
when you think of Peebo and Gerald and all those guys from back in the day,
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
cats, they
Yeah.
had a kind of a way that they just kind of dealt with women. They didn't say anything graphic. They just
It was
said
more
certain
sultry.
things.
It was very
Exactly.
sultry, and leading versus
Right.
what it is now. Now it's just in your face.
Right. So now when you have an R&B song, when you think of like what Chris Brown makes, and you're like, you be racing for the volume button, like I can't let my kids hear that. Right. So it's, now that's kind of that's kind of the dichotomy of how my books were versus how the book in 2018 was.
Yeah.
So the 2018, I literally ripped the band-aid off. I was like, I'm tired of playing with y'all.
Yeah.
I want to get a message across to y'all and y'all not listening, et cetera, et
Exactly.
cetera. So yeah, there were some things, you know, I want I live in a world where I don't put any sort of regrets. But if I could go back and kind of say, let me take that from like an 8 or a 9 to like back to like a 5 or a 6,
Yeah.
I would. So it was a little scathing, because I went in on, again, like I said, I went in on brothers, I went in on sisters, and I was just very brazen about stuff. So yeah, yeah,
What do you think is the greatest disconnect for us in relationships? I mean, because of course, I think that there needs to be a healthy discourse for us. But what do you think outside of our training and upbringing? I mean, just even hearing your story about your grandfather and just different men in your life and relationships, do you think it's all derivative primarily of what we've seen? Or is it also what we find intoxicating ourselves that we want to participate in?
yeah. I think it's a mix of a couple of things. I think, uh, again, it goes back to what I was saying. We most of us haven't. If I were to put, let's say, 100 people in a room, men and women, and I said, show of hands, who had both of their parents in the home every day, parents were married, et cetera, et cetera. I would probably gather to say maybe 20% of us, maybe. So I think a lot of it is just kind of, and when I say when I say in the home every day, I mean functional, healthy relationships. Not well, he was here, but he was drinking a lot. I don't mean that kind of stuff. I mean, how many of us had situations where our parents were in the home showing us day to day of how a relationship should go? Very few of us had that. So it's hard to kind of kind of kind of learn almost on the fly, because when you learn on the fly you make a lot of mistakes, and that's what ends up happening with a lot of us in our relationships, is we make a lot of mistakes. And it's like, you know I mean, even myself, I'm guilty of it. I mean, we've been married almost 4 years, and there were things that I've had to learn, things that, even both of my parents were in the home and everything, but there are things I've had to learn, and bad behaviors, dysfunctions that I've had to kind of set to the wayside, where I'm like, yeah, you can't be doing this and you can't say these type of things. So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we really haven't had any type of consistent, healthy, healthy relationships to really kind of pattern our mirror after. So yeah, did that answer your question?
That does that's the
Okay.
important part, that you put the emphasis exactly where I was hoping, which is the healthy relationships.
Yeah.
And because we're talking meaningful relationships all season long, we're really talking about getting our ships in order. So it's not necessarily about what the other person is doing, it's what we're bringing. And at the onset, we talked a little bit about what we found to be a real disconnect is that we're so selfish. Everybody only wants what they want. What's the end in mind for me, versus coming to the relationship with a servant heart and with a servant attitude. Because if the goal really is to support and serve the other person, then our needs are met anyway because they should be doing the same thing back, right? I'm not the expert, you are. I'm not the coach, you are. But I want to talk about like how do we tap more into the vulnerability side of the house, Blair?
Well, part of it is great question. Part of it is being able to, to use a word that I used earlier, being able to humble yourself.
Oh,
Many of us don't really know how to truly, genuinely be humble. And when I say humble, I don't mean being a doormat. I don't mean being walked over. No one's telling you to do that. You should never be a doormat for anybody. Don't humble yourself in that manner. Humbling yourself means that I don't know all the answers, but what I'm here to do to use our word again, I'm here to be a servant to my husband or to my wife. That's what I'm here to do. So I think, or in a relationship. So I think a lot of it goes back to can we can we put aside the myopic level of just kind of looking at how we think relationships should be. What can I get? How does he look? How does he dress? What's his bank account look like? Where is he going to take me? Are we going to go on vacations? Or is he going to be such and such to my kids or whatever? These are things that are important, no question. But these are also things that kind of take a backseat to the fact of, are you in a servant mindset? We don't really become in a servant mindset. We're just not. We're not people who are, we're not a culture that really teaches one another how to be, modest and just very humble. That would be the word I would use. Is just we have to have a level of humility with how we approach things, and we really don't. If you go on social media, if you go on Facebook right now, you'll see people commenting and talking about, this is what I want from a man. If he ain't doing this, you can keep it moving, brother. Or if she's not this, if she's this, and she ain't, whatever, she ain't submissive, you can keep it moving. And that might be true. You might want a woman who's submissive. You might need a man. You might want a man to do X, Y, Z.
mhm.
However, let's put it back in your court for a second.
Yeah.
Are you a person who has a servant mindset? I don't mean servant after you get something. That's not a servant mindset.
Exactly.
That's not how a servant works. A servant doesn't say, well, once they get their stuff together, I'll go and I might go and, yeah. No. That's not servant. Servant says, I'm going to do it with a full heart, regardless of the return that I'm getting. That's a servant
Let's go
mindset.
slow right through there. Let's go slow right through there, Blair, for the men, because
Hmm.
the show is designed for men. Because you're a man talking to the heart of a man. What does that really look like for a male? And the reason I'm asking this question is because I'm just going to be transparent, because transparency is what leads to transformation, right?
That's what you
Uh,
said.
that's
That's
what I
what you
said.
said.
That's what I said. So, I was raised more so like it was happy wife, happy life, and that
Hmm.
attitude I think is why I'm divorced, because that's not reality. It's
Hmm.
happy spouse, it's happy house. It's not just
Absolutely.
about me. It's about him too, right? And
Hmm.
that's why I said what I said. That's how I lead now. My spirit is different now. That no, I am
Hmm.
going to be, he what he thinks, what he needs, his needs are equally as important as my needs. There's a great book called His Needs, Her Needs. And when it comes to the man, though, I want you to talk to our men about what it looks like to be humble, because there's a pseudo humility that we all operate in. So what
Hmm.
does it look like for our men to really walk into a place of humility?
What it looks like for us as men is, and I'll use myself as an example. So, uh, of course, I asked my wife to marry me. It was I want to say September 19th, somewhere in that range. It was 2019. So one of the things that I said when I did the proposal, because we had a video playing and everything, and my friends were around, and they followed me and they came to the house and all that. So it was a wonderful experience. One of the things that I said to the men was I wanted men to be able to see that relationship slash marriage is something that you shouldn't run away from. I wanted it to be something where men can see. You don't have to, because the way a lot of the men think, like, yeah, when I get old and I'm gonna be a little, and my penis don't work, and my belly's past my shoes and everything else, then they think to themselves, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get me a girl. Instead of saying, you know what, why not still have have my member functioning and have myself and have all my faculties and not be looking for a woman to take care of me? Why not have a woman and have a wife that you can grow with and mature with, and she can see those certain things? So one of the things that I said in my video that I did was I wanted men to be able to see another, and I'm not young, obviously you see the gray in the beard, so I'm not extremely young, but I wanted black men to see that, as I said in the video, the water's fine. Yes, look at all the different things about the woman that you're interested in and take a calculated risk in allowing that to be your wife. A lot of times with men, one of the problems that we have is we have to have this literal checklist of she can't be this, she can't be, she can't be. And then the next thing you know, you're like, well, there's probably only 2 women around me like that. And then, then you have to say to yourself, is there even a camaraderie and a connection with you two? So what I would say for men is, yes, there are some core definitive principles you should have about the kind of woman that you look for, but it doesn't have to be this entire checklist of, if she doesn't have this, she's not a good woman. There were things about, my wife that, I was like, okay. And then, and then when I talked with her and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take this calculated risk. So part of that humbling to say, you can't wait for this perfect, this unicorn. And that's what a lot of times us as men and women, but we're talking about men right now. A lot of times men kind of are waiting for this unicorn that really doesn't exist. And so what happens is, we're like, well, I'm waiting for this, this ideal woman. And it's like, are you sure she's really out there like that? Are you sure there's a single woman out there that has all those different attributes and qualities that you're looking for? Because you shouldn't, you shouldn't really have too much of a problem. If you say that you're as quality as a gentleman as you say, you shouldn't really have any problem meeting that kind of individual. And if year after year and year after year and year after year, you're not meeting that person, something's wrong. And you need to go back and kind of tweak your list and say, you know what, my principles are never going to change. She's going to have some core values, some core traditions, etc. But, maybe she doesn't have to necessarily be the exact weight that I was talking about. What if she's if I say I want her to be 190 to 200, maybe if she's a bump over 200 or whatever, maybe I'll kind of entertain that. Maybe if I want her to have, I don't want her to wear, wigs or weaves or anything. Are you okay with that? Maybe you can kind of allow her to kind of transition and show her some different styles as you kind of, as you guys are starting to be together. Not that you're trying to, drastically change her, but allow yourself the ability to kind of meet someone who doesn't have all those specific qualities. So that's what I mean by, I think, we have to humble ourselves. We have to kind of look inward and say, if you say, you want all these different things, but if you're not finding it in a reasonable time, then you may have to go back and kind of tweak and do a little bit of a pivot on the things that what's the word I'm looking for? Because your standards and your principles don't change, but those don't change. But the things that you want, like I want, what's that?
You have your non-negotiables. Then you
your
have
non-negotiables
to be flexible in.
Exactly. Your non-negotiables, your principles, your standards never change. The things that you like, I want her to be this height. I want her to be this size. I want her to have this skin complexion. I want her to have, long hair. I want her to have, a rear end a certain way. I want her to have no kids, and by the time you get done with this list, you got you got two chicks, right? And then, like I said, then how do you know that them two chicks are into you?
Right.
So this is where a lot of men end up kind of being single for a long period of time as well. Uh, not really getting to meet a really good woman. So they allow a lot of women to just kind of slip through their fingertips,
Okay.
waiting on
So,
this ideal unicorn.
and would that fall in alignment when I hear men say, "Oh, I'm just picky"? Because is that an excuse to just say they picky?
So let me put you up on game for a second. So
Because
a lot of times,
I know you got something for it.
yeah, a lot of times men will say that because the same way that women say I don't really want a relationship, and in their heart that they
They
that they
do.
do,
Hmm.
they what they're saying is I actually do want a relationship, but I want that unicorn. I want that guy who's 6'5", muscles, great smile, charisma, kind of as they say, the corporate thug, et cetera, et cetera. I want him to have a little bit of an edge. I want him to, be only into me. I want him to like kids. I want him to be church going. I want him to be all these different things. And it's like, you want all these different things. That dude don't really exist. And if he do, he probably running through women. Don't
Well,
don't don't deal with
well,
him,
well.
huh?
I said,
Yeah,
well.
he's running through women. So don't
Mm,
sit here and wait for him. I'm not saying that you have to, if you want somebody 6'5", okay. But if you want someone that has, all those different things, all those different attributes, then you have to say to yourself, what specifically would he get dating just you? Because why couldn't he date this young lady over here? Right?
yeah,
What are
yeah.
you bringing that is so miraculous that he would just leave all those different women alone and just deal with you?
Right.
And this is part of the problem that a lot of specifically a lot of our women have, in the aspect that they can't really grasp the fact that they're using up a lot of their best years waiting
Mm.
on this guy that ain't coming.
Ooh,
And I tell women,
oh my goodness.
and which is I'll say this. That was one of and I can't remember the name of the chapter, but one of the chapters I was telling you about in that book in 2018, where I
Mhm.
really went hard at us as men and women, was I said, um, Black women have what I call a gift and a curse, meaning that they age pretty well. They age
Mhm.
pretty well. The problem with it is that it kind of plays a Jedi mind trick on you in having you think that you've got a lot of time, and you don't.
Wow.
And so what happens is women look at themselves and they look in the mirror like, I look damn good for 40, right?
Right.
And they say to themselves, I look good. When they look at their peers and their counterparts, they say to themselves, I look, great for 40, right?
Mhm.
Not realizing that that's part of the finesse.
Yeah.
Is that's part of the game that gets played, is you think you look good and you look good and you look good, and now that you realize you're 40 and 42 and 46 and
Mhm.
49, and
Mhm.
you're still trying to, he's coming, he's right around the corner, I'm waiting on that right guy. And it's like, you do realize there's a whole new bumper crop of women who are much younger coming right
Right.
behind you,
Right.
right? And they're
Mm.
sweet and they know how to cook and all these other things. Why would a guy pick you over her? And this is the hard part, this is the part that's hard to get across to women, because through movies, through all these different things, these media outlets, a lot of our women have been kind of told these, and I'm just going to say it, as much as it might be a gut punch, they've been told these lies for
Mhm.
literally generations.
Wow. Wow.
And
Wow.
so it's you know for someone like me, I come along and I'm sitting here, but that game show where they bust the balloons and everything. I'm that guy. I'm busting bubbles everywhere because I'm telling you, you're
Right.
playing your you're
Wow.
playing yourself.
Mm, mm, mm.
And the guy that you say this tells you he's going to be with you, he got to get some things right and everything. He's playing you.
Right.
He's playing you.
Wow.
Playing you. And it's
Wow.
hard for women to understand that, because they've been told, again, this is the game that they've been told for generations, that they're different and they're special and everything else, and that if they just wait, that guy's gonna come, and he's not coming. You got to be slightly aggressive yourself. You got to kind of realize yourself, maybe I can't go get one of them high tier guys. Maybe if I can get me kind of a middle tier guy who's, he's still 6'5", maybe he's slew footed, right? Are you cool? Are you cool with getting a guy if he's 6'5" and he got a little thug in him and everything, or maybe he's slew footed? Or maybe he got one of these teeth missing over here on the side or something. Are you okay with that? Could you deal with that? So this is you laughing at me, man. So this is the challenge that happens where you try to help women to understand you're living in a dream world. And so what I try to do is I try to pull women out of that dream world. Most times it's not successful. Sometimes it is, but most times it's not successful because our women have been lied to for generations. So I'm coming along. You've been bamboozled, right? So I think some of the women are. I'll just say this. I was going to say I think some of the women are slowly starting to get it, but a lot of
But Blair. Okay, so I want to make sure I don't miss this. So when the men say that they're picky, that's them like the woman saying she's looking for a unicorn. That's just a play on words. Basically, the man is saying that because he wants to play the field. Basically.
Yeah. Pay attention to what men do and don't pay no attention to what he says. Pay attention to what he does. A man can be, and really, I mean, I would question the fact that you would be dating someone who doesn't have a job and might be homeless or whatever. But a man can have literally nothing, and if he wants to be with that woman and he wants to marry that woman and wants to make that woman his wife, he can do that. He can do that and make that happen tomorrow. So it happens all the time. You hear stories of people, we didn't have much. I had a little $200 dress I bought, and we went and bought a ring from, such and such. It was like $80, and we went and got married. And now we've been married 15 years. Everything is not going to be this. He came and climbed down off the ladder, had a rose in his teeth, and he put the jacket down so I didn't have to walk over the puddle and all that. Everything is not going to be like that. Everything is not going to be him taking you on your first date to y'all going to be dressed up in tuxes and you in your ball gown. Everything is not going to be like that. A lot of times you're going to meet, like my wife, I'll tell you, my first date, I thought I had lost my wallet. I literally did.
I was going to ask you about her. I wanted to switch gears.
Yeah, I was sitting there. We were very first date. She'll tell you, very first date. I was like, I don't know where my wallet is, and I'm sure she was like, really?
I know
really?
She was like, really, guy? Like,
really? Yeah, you gonna do that on me? So yeah, and now here we are, and everything's fine. But everything is not going to be this, perfect soliloquy of dating. And I just want our women to kind of get away from that. I want if there's nothing else that your audience takes from this, I want them to take. I need to see our women be, and then when I say aggressive, I don't mean that they go out there and like, I'm trying to find me a man. I'm on the hunt. I don't mean aggressive like that. I mean, put some skin in the game. I can't tell you how many times I've had women say, when was the last time that you actually took your business card, went over to a gentleman that you were kind of interested in and just said, hi, my name is such and such. I come to this place often. I would love to, talk with you when you got some time. If you're interested, if you're free, give me a call like that. You don't have to go into any type of whatever. Maybe the conversation will carry you somewhere else. Maybe not, but get some skin in the game, put some effort into it. A lot of times, our women kind of sit back and they're a little bit, as I call, too cool for school. They sit back and they want this perfect scenario and this perfect situation to happen. And if it ain't happening after year after year after year after year after year, you got to look at yourself and say, I might be doing something wrong. So that's it.
Wow, that's really powerful. I love the fact that you shared. So you really did leave your wallet, or you just thought you
No. Actually, it had, I don't know. I think it had fallen or something.
Okay.
So I literally was panicking because I'm like, I really, and I'll share this with you real quick. So I was single, and My friends were like, yeah, you a dating person, you up here single, you gotta find you somebody. I was like, yeah. I was like, And so what happened was my friends were kind of introducing me like, what do you think about this person? She likes bottled water too. I'm like, just will you allow this stuff to just happen organically? Don't be trying to force me in no situation, So, um, as I always tell my wife, and I joke with her, I always say I have a lot of really attractive Facebook friends.
Mm-hmm.
I had always noticed her, and you're on Facebook. You've met some of your Facebook friends. Some of your Facebook friends, you meet him, and you're like, oh wow, you're like he's handsome. And then you meet some Facebook friends, and you're like, I could have went without meeting him. He don't look nothing like his picture, right? He got his jaws all, crazy looking. So, I'd always noticed her and I was like, I think she's beautiful, right? Just chocolate. She had locks and everything and still has locks. I was like, chocolate and beautiful and, yes. So when I finally met her, like when I saw her out, I was like, oh, she's really cute.
Yeah.
She is cute. So, again, context.
Yeah.
Back when I was doing this, I was doing something called Single of the Week. And so what that was it was a thing where I did where I would kind of hook up singles. So what had happened was I had a lot of my women friends who friends of mine, and they're like, Blair, where's all the single guys? There ain't no single guy. They ain't even no single guys in your page. I was like, sweetie, there's a ton of single men on my page, a ton of attractive 6 foot and over, handsome, single men on my page. It's like, there ain't no, I was like, watch this. So that's actually where the Single of the Week started. I started doing women and I did women for a couple of months. Then I started doing, rewind. I started doing men. And then the women kind of came in and they were like, we want to be part of this too. I was like, all right, cool. We'll do it for, the women as well. So basically, and I'm going somewhere with this, basically, I was doing this and I had been doing this for a few years.
Okay.
So when I saw my now wife at an event, I was like, hey, and I'm, trying to, I'm like, hey, I'm trying to girl, I just want to just climb all over you, girl. Just, but I was like, I played it cool. I was like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? I did my whole thing. Right. It's like, hey, how you doing? I was like, how about if I reach out to you sometime? And that was that. I didn't press her or whatever. Cause I was like, she might have a guy. I was like, I don't want to. So, when I finally did reach out to her, she thought I was actually reaching out to her to be a Single of the Week. She was like, and also another piece of context, she was actually seeing a guy that I know.
Oh.
So when I was inboxing her and everything, she my wife was like, I think he wants me to be Single of the Week. He was like, he ain't inboxing you about no Single of the Week. He trying to get it, girl. He trying to get at you. He ain't thinking about no Single of the Week.
Wow.
So
wow.
that's actually how we kind of started. I just kind of inboxed her. I wasn't pressing her. I was like, because again, I understand with women, they get pressed in their inbox, and I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be that guy. Like, hey, what are you doing? So I was like, and I was like, do you mind if I call you one day? And so I called her, talked to her on her way to work, and then we just started kind of growing from there. Then we had our first date, which is where I left where I dropped my wallet and thought I was done. I thought I was done. I was like, oh man, this is not good. So yeah, but it worked out. Pay for the dinner, and here we are.
My goodness, I really could see you. See, now I got a whole new thought process. I could really see you as a hitch, because back then, when that movie came out, you definitely be a good fit because he had all the ladies. But I want to ask you a couple things as we wrap up. What's the best relationship advice you ever received?
Best relationship advice I ever received.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Can I give you a couple?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I can't think of any like one isolated thing. One of them is, and I can't remember exactly who told me, but it was something I just kind of spoke on just a little bit ago, which is don't be one of those people that basically sits on the sidelines for the rest of your life. Take a calculated risk with meeting someone and then just go for it. The problem with us is I will say it again. This is the gift and the curse of social media. We overanalyze everything.
I'm guilty.
And so, yeah, we overanalyze everything. And so what happens is you end up being on the sidelines for years.
Yeah. Wow.
And so what he basically told me was, if you see somebody, you like, talk to her, fill her out and everything. Don't be in an extreme rush, but take a calculated risk. And if you're feeling, that everything is together and whatever, go for it. Make the leap and whatever. More often than not, if you ask the right questions and you do your homework, and my wife will tell you, I'm sure she's listening upstairs right now. My wife will tell you, I will add, and then this is kind of the way I am. I'm very analytical. I'll ask a question and I'm gonna ask another question, that same question, like in 2 months, because I want to see if you got the same answer and whatever, right? And then I'm gonna ask a question a different way. And I know she's like, and that's now she just give me one sentence answers because she knows like he's trying to set me up. I know he is, and whatever. And I've always been that way. Thank goodness to my mother. She put me in a lot of debate classes. I was actually raised a Jehovah's Witness. So
wow. Okay.
yeah, so I've got debate classes under me. I've got Jehovah's Witness thing because I'm used to speaking in groups of in front of hundreds of people, and then the natural gift of having dealt with my grandfather, my father, etc. Was again to use this overused term. It was a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
And so that would probably be the one thing I would say is I'll just leave it at that.
What's the worst? What would you
worst?
Say? Worst advice. Worst relationship.
I'm gonna take some flack for this, but it is what it is. The worst advice I would probably say, I won't even say that. I'll say this. One of the things that I do is I even tell my wife this. Like there's certain groups on social media where they talk about relationships and they like post a picture of you and your sweetie, talk about date night, talk about, all these different things, right? There's wonderful, wonderful groups, right? And I'm in a ton of those groups,
okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also in a lot of those red pill groups too, where they talk about, da 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 da, and these sisters out here, man, whatever. And I do that because I'm very much a person who's about balance, and I like like I tell my wife, even listen to Fox News, listen to CNN. Don't just listen to CNN and what they tell you because they're going to tell you what they want you to hear. You got to listen to both sides. So I listen to the ugly part of it. I listen to the beautiful part of it, so I can kind of have a balanced view of stuff. So I would probably just say a lot of it probably is the rhetoric that you hear that basically says, black men shouldn't get married, black men shouldn't, be in relationships, et cetera, et cetera. What does a black man get out of marriage that he can't get while he's just single? I think that's probably some of the worst relationship advice that I've seen, that I've heard, because what it does is it doesn't break the cycle of dysfunction. It keeps us in this pattern and this kind of this silo of always talking about what, like black women are out to get you, and I'm gonna say this: there are some black women out here who are who are, I won't say the word I want to say.
It keeps that infighting. It keeps the infighting going.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and say that the sisters. There's some sisters out here that's a stone trip, right? However, I'm not here, right. There are a lot of women who, if given the opportunity and given everything put together, would blow the doors off of you if you let them. If you let them. So that would probably be the one thing I would say is you hear a lot of rhetoric. I'm sure you've heard it on social media. Why get married? Don't deal with these sisters. Get your passport, go somewhere else. Et cetera, et cetera. And again, in fairness, I think there is a modicum of truth there. I think there is something there to be seen, but I don't think that you should I don't think this idea that we paint all black women with the same brush. I can't go with that. So that's what I would say.
So good. Two last questions. The first one is three words that describe you that are not a title or position.
Three words that would describe me: transparent, visionary, and traditional. I'll use those three.
Love it. Last question. I ask everybody this one, and it really is, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn when it comes to relationships?
Lesson took me the longest to learn. I would say, the ability to trust. That's something that I think we all have an issue with. But the ability to trust, because again, especially I would say being on social media, you're pumped and pumped full of this information telling you how untrustworthy black women are, black men are. But for my sake, I'll say for our women, you're pumped full of this information telling us how untrustworthy our women are. Excuse me. And again, like I said, are there probably stories out there of women who did, certain men wrong? Sure, there are, no question. But again, like I said, I think I'm all about it being a calculated risk. I think if you just do your homework and say to yourself, I'm not in, I'm in it to win it. I'm not here to lose, and I'm going to give everything that I can into this relationship, just every fiber that I can. More often than not, you're going to come out on the winning side. And that, again, that's something that we don't teach one another. We teach one another, get them before they get you, keep it loose and be disengaged and all this other stuff. And then we wonder why we kind of keep in this impediment of this bad cycle of relationships, because we don't really look at each other as partners, or as companions. We see each other as adversaries. And that's a huge problem in our culture. Very huge problem.
That's it right there. My goodness. Well, I can't believe it. The time has gone so fast. My goodness. My goodness. This has just been really rich. It has been a delight to have you in the bullpen. We're going to make sure that we include all the links to all of the books and all the ways to make contact with you so that people can stay glued in with everything that you have going on. Any big news, any announcements, anything you want to share with us that's coming down the pike that you can share if it's available?
Yeah, the only thing is my book, but that's coming a couple of months away. So it's coming. I know people. I've been saying it's coming for a better part of a little over a year now, and it's going back to what I was saying to you earlier about my last book being kind of raw. What I'm attempting to do, and what I'm trying to do, what I'm doing, but what I'm attempting to do right now is find that sweet spot of getting a very, very, very direct message across, and still having it be palatable, which is hard, because dealing with us, we're so, both sides, both men and women, are so raw meaning like raw nerves. We're so raw that any slight variation, any type of sensitivity sends us off and triggers us. So what I'm trying to do is trying to find that very, very kind of that fine line of getting a harsh message across, because we got some big problems, but still kind of doing it in a humorous way, doing it in a way that's kind of that's like, oh, that makes a whole hell of a lot of sense, and trying to get it to a point where it's not preachy and judgmental, but like, I might have needed to hear that. And that's my whole goal. So my book will be out. I'm gunning for it to be by the end of the year. Might have to go to, January or February, but it'll be out soon. Well, it's about 98% done. I've got all the chapters. I'm moving and kind of trying to figure out, and I'm trying messing around with some different titles and everything. Right. So the book is conceptually done as far as the writing part. But it just needs to kind of, it got to make sense, and it's got to be it's got to be right. But it's going to be a long book. It's right now I think I'm at about 190 as far as the pages. So
Okay.
it's my longest book so far has been 130 something pages. So at
Yeah.
190 pages, this is going to be it's going to be epic.
Yeah, 200 pages is good. That's digestible. You know, I don't personally
Mm.
believe in balance. I believe that we have to find that sweet spot of harmony because that
Hmm.
nothing's ever balanced. We're always going to be out of balance somewhere if you're balanced in some area. But we need that grit. We need the hard truth. I think the humorous side of you telling your own story. My goodness, that'll have people in stitches by itself. But also giving us the real hard truth of what we need because medicine doesn't taste good going down, but it's good for you. So
True,
that's
very true.
what we need. And we want to definitely invite you back when the book is ready, because you know I want to make sure that I'm glued in and that I grab my copy, and also we'll bring you back to talk more about it when it's ready. So you keep us
Absolutely.
posted. And
We got to figure out if we first cousins and everything too. So we got to get that together.
look, I know you all know y'all see the names are the same, but we still got to figure that
Right.
out.
If so, I want to personally invite you to cookout and everything.
Right. So we definitely want to find that out. But it has been my delight, my privilege to definitely have you in the bullpen tonight. It's been a long time coming. So grateful. And I just hope that you all will take all that Blair has shared with us tonight and not allow it to fall on deaf ears. So we'll see you when you come back. And so we're going to say good night for now.
Thank you for having me. Greatly appreciate it. Had a great time.
Pleasure. My absolute pleasure. All right, you all. Well, listen, I told you this was going to be one for the books. Now, you all have been asking me all this time to get Blair on, and I brought him here. You know, he's the love, the dating and relationship coach. So my well theory tonight is really just very simple. I ultimately just wanted to remind us that we have to be the person. I say it all the time that we have to be, do, have. But more importantly, what we heard tonight from Blair is that you have got to be willing to take the calculated risk. That's the biggest thing I heard from him tonight is be willing to take the calculated risk. Don't run away. So don't give up so quickly, but be willing to take the risk, step out there and see what happens. Get out that boat. And that's really all I have for tonight. I do want to encourage you, be sure to go over to the Bullpen Show the Bullpen Show on Facebook, the Facebook group, so you can stay connected with everything going on with Blair, as well as anything else happening right here in the bullpen. And we're going to see you on our very next episode. Good night.